Today's programming includes first a conversation with Nihal Mehta, General Partner of ENIAC Ventures, followed by entrepreneur pitches. So I will give you more details on the entrepreneur pitches in a bit, but let's begin with Nihal. Welcome, Nihal, to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So Nihal, let's get you acquainted with our audience. Tell us about yourself, about ENIAC Ventures. Give us a little bit of context.
Sure. So I've been an entrepreneur my whole career. I started in 1998, so 20 years ago, actually, while in college. And since then, I've started five startups, invested in almost 200, of which about 2/3 or close to that are through our venture fund that we started about 9 years ago called ENIAC Ventures. The startups that I founded and ran were mostly in the mobile software space, mobile marketing and mobile advertising, selling into the Fortune 1000, so large brands, and a number of them were acquired, a number of them failed. Obviously, you learn the most from the failures. We say as investors now we have a lot of scar tissue and muscle memory that makes us more empathetic, to founders, as we're founders ourselves. And for better or worse, we still feel like we're founders when we invest in a company. So we tell our founders that, you now have a co-founder without the title and the equity, but we're going to do whatever it takes to make your business a success.
So tell us a bit about ENIAC Ventures. What is the investing focus? Where do you operate out of? How big is the fund? What size checks do you like to write?
Yep. So we're operating out of our fourth fund. We're about a third of the way through it. It's a $100 million fund that we announced last April, 2017. We started, I mentioned a lot of companies I founded were in the mobile software space. I actually met my three partners as engineers in undergrad at the University of Pennsylvania over 20 years ago. And they all had similar experiences founding and operating companies also in the mobile software space. And so the focus of the first funds were in and around mobile. So historically, about half of our portfolio is enterprise, half is consumer. But, post iPhone, Android, even we thought the largest opportunities, and we were right, were in and around mobile. Now, with Fund 4, we're very deliberate about expanding the strategy. The mobile internet is now the internet, and mobile is completely ubiquitous. And so, while a lot of the companies we do invest in have mobile components or mobile only, we're looking more broadly. And, I think we're very focused on stage. So we're seed stage. We're the round before the Series A. Our job is to write $1 million to $1.5 million check and really help the company get to a great Series A. We have, according to many third-party publications, one of the best records in getting companies from seed to A in the shortest time with the best A investors, and so we're very proud of that. That goes, I think, into us acting like a co-founder of our investments. So we're very focused on stage. Can you
double-click down for me, Nihal, to the point about seed? What is your definition of seed? What needs to be in the venture for you to qualify, for this to qualify as a seed investment per your judgment?
Yeah, that's a great question. Typically the team has been built out and there's a product prototype. There's some usage on the product. So if it's a B2B product, there's revenue, some revenue, not a lot, just some. We want to make sure there's revenue flowing through the pipes. And if it's a consumer product, then, you know, there's some user data. And I think that's really important for us because we want to definitely reference customers, you know, when we do diligence and, you know, the product is far along that there are customers on the product. Now, it's definitely pre-product market fit. So, you know, the product is not flying off the shelves by itself. And the founders are still pivoting and tweaking and iterating on the product to make it stick. And so that's our job, is to really get it through product market fit and raise the Series A. But at the stage that we invest in, the team has been built out, the prototype is there, and the founders need capital to just accelerate their iteration of the product. Typically these rounds are $2 to $3 million now. You know, this would have been called a Series A 5-6 years ago. Now it's seed. And there's actually a whole cohort of capital right before us called pre-seed. And that's kind of, when we started investing, those were those rounds, you know, the first kind of $250 to $1 million. So entrepreneurs are raising pre-seed now from angels, friends, and family, pre-seed funds. And typically that's helping them build a team, helping them build a prototype. And once they have that and they have some customer traction, they'll go and raise the seed, which is that $2 to $3 million round that we like to lead.
So, Nihal, I will tell you this, that in all the conversations that we've had, and we've had hundreds of investor conversations, the terminology is even more segmented, and the progression is friends and family, pre-seed, seed, post-seed, pre-Series A, Series A, and based on what you're describing, you're more in the pre-Series A kind of ballpark than seed.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, obviously the nomenclature is a little subjective and it also changes kind of every month. But, you know, in general, we are, you know, we're the first institutional round, the round before the Series A.
So you mentioned about B2B, you're looking for revenues. Are you also looking for revenues in B2C? How do you mark the stage in B2C?
Yeah, typically the consumer businesses we're investing in have no revenue at the seed stage. You know, how we analyze them and you know, how we do diligence on them and how we ultimately invest in consumer companies are dictated by things like user engagement. You know, we want to make sure that consumers are coming back. There's some semblance of a viral coefficient that consumers are inviting other users are inviting other users. That's starting to happen. That there's some uniqueness to the product that can't be found elsewhere. So, you know, definitely look at consumer businesses through a different lens. Of course, you know, there needs to be, at the end of the day, a business model to monetize the business. You know, typically consumer businesses are monetized by subscription or by advertising or by virtual goods, but we don't need to see actual revenue. We just need to, you know, see a plan and a vision that eventually they will monetize. But, you know, at seed stage, consumers, it's very, you know, it's a lot of it's a gut instinct in terms of obviously founding and creating, but investing in. It's just very early without a lot of data points, to your point.
Right. Yeah, and it's difficult to convince investors that it's going to monetize at some point, because there are so many unknowns that is in a seed stage from B2C venture. We see entrepreneurs struggling with that. I think B2B is easier at some level.
Yeah, I think it goes in waves. You know, I think looking at the past 2 years, like 2017 and 2018, the majority of our investments were definitely enterprise, B2B. Yeah. We think there's more opportunities today in enterprise. I mean, another point to make is, you know, the big incumbents, Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, are executing extremely well. You know, they're retaining
very, very well.
You know, they're retaining.
It's definitely the age of the incumbents these days on the B2C side.
Well, yeah, for consumer. And so for that reason, like actually consumer-focused venture funds are actually going down in size because they realize that, you know, gone are the days of like the Instagram, WhatsApp, YouTube billion-plus acquisitions because, you know, Google, Facebook are retaining the best engineers. They'll just, you know, try to build it, if not buy it, before it gets big enough. And so the return profile of these startups go down, and so you have to have a smaller fund size to actually return your fund. And so I think on the enterprise side, there's just so many more opportunities. You know, you have
enterprise very
on the SaaS side, you know, Salesforce, SAP, Oracle, Adobe, all competing for, you know, the MarTech stack or the CRM stack, and there's still huge gaps where entrepreneurs can grow very, very quickly. So yeah, we're excited. You know, we've done a lot of enterprise, but you know, that being said, I mean, you probably saw the stat on Facebook recently. You know, 40% of millennials have removed Facebook from their phone, and you know, Snapchat is not doing well either. I think there's a real opportunity for, you know, very large breakout consumer unicorns over the next few years, and so you know, we're definitely keeping our eyes peeled there as well.
Yeah. Now, what is the geographical focus of your funds?
Yeah, so we are geography agnostic. Our headquarters is San Francisco, but we have a large office in New York as well. So we're bi-coastal, but we invest anywhere in North America. You know, our networks are in North America, so that's where you know, we can help accelerate companies. How it breaks down over the past fund is about a quarter Bay Area, about a quarter New York City, about a quarter Boston, and then about a quarter other. And other, we're seeing markets like LA, Salt Lake City, Austin, Vancouver, Seattle, you know, all over the country. And so, you know, I think that 25% is probably going to grow faster than the others. But it's pretty broadly, you know, spread out across the country. It's getting more and more broad.
So let's talk about some of the highlights of your portfolio. And what I like to do is to give our audience a bit of an insight into how you think about investments. So talk about some of the case studies and give us some feel for why it attracted you. What was it? What was in the venture? What were they doing that really attracted you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we were lucky very early to actually a great team, a great full stack engineering founding team. One of our very first investments ended up selling almost 10 years ago to Air Bed and Breakfast, now Airbnb. So we were lucky to be a shareholder by virtue of that acquisition. But you know, I think one thing that's reflective about that company is the team I mentioned is full stack. So the founding team could actually build and ship product by themselves. And I think that's one thing that we definitely look at within the founders is that there's a technical co-founder and a business co-founder typically. So there's more than one founder. They can actually build and ship product by themselves. You know, ultimately they'll raise capital and they'll hire people better than them. But in the beginning, it's really important for them to build and ship and iterate very quickly by themselves. We like multiple co-founders. You know, building a startup is very, very hard. We know it firsthand. You know, many people listening to this feel the pain every day. And so having somebody, you know, to bounce ideas off of, to give a hug to get a hug from, that's incredibly important during this journey. And so we like, you know, more than one founder. We like that they're technical. We also like that if they've actually done this before together, and either tasted a little bit of success before together or even failed before together, because they've been through the peaks and valleys of entrepreneurship together, and they still want to work and they still want to work together. And so we've kind of de-risked that a little bit. You know, the number one killer of startups at early stage is founder infighting. And so if you can, you know, de-risk that by, you know, looking for working history, and especially when times are tough, then that's what we prefer. Another case study based on all of those things that I just said is a company called Boxed, B-O-X-E-D. The founding team actually sold a company called Astro Ape to Zynga and left Zynga to start Boxed. We led the seed investment in 2012. So 6 years ago, they just announced they raised a $110 million round, and they're growing very quickly. They are essentially like a Sam's Club or a Costco, a bulk goods, direct-to-consumer e-commerce company without the membership fees. So you can buy your paper towels, your toilet paper, and if you don't, then you should from Box. And the team was full stack. They did it before. They had a small taste of success. They wanted to go bigger. And so that kind of checks those boxes, right? Multiple founders, full stack. They can build and ship between the founding teams. They've done it before together. Of course, what they're building, Box, is very different than Astro Ape, although they're using a lot of the same game mechanics that they learned at Zynga. But it doesn't matter. It's 90% about team at our stage, and so I think that's what we look for. So that, those are a couple examples. We have many incredible companies that have very similar profiles. Happy to talk about more.
Based on what you said, I want to provide some commentary to our audience about the team issue, just based on what I heard you say. So you're hearing Nihal talk about multiple co-founders, and he's talking about a full stack team. So the team needs to be completely built out before they're willing to fund this company in the seed stage. Now, those two are kind of mutually dependent. You can only have a full stack team if you have multiple co-founders, because if you have to hire people and build out a team, you cannot get. At that stage, with that little resource in terms of capital, you can't complete a team by hiring people. So that's just something to note that, certain investors, Nihal is representative of that investor class, would only invest in full stack teams at the seed stage, and the only way to get to that is with multiple co-founders.
Yeah, there's one, other addition I just add to that, which is, in many cases, you still have solo founders, right? But they are technical, so they can build and ship the product themselves.
Yes.
And they have some business acumen, but they're definitely technical. So, in those situations, if you can build and ship, if you can code, or you're technical, if you're building a robotics company and you're a roboticist, then that's okay. You can hire business people around you after you raise money. But you yourself are full stack, essentially. So you could have a solo founder that's full stack as well.
Okay, that's actually very good elaboration. So we get this question a lot, is like, are solo founders fundable? And I think generally investors prefer not to fund solo founders, except in the case that you're talking about, where the solo founder can build businesses by himself or herself, and then you can flesh out the team after funding.
Yeah, I think the dependencies are key, right? Like, to your point, as long as they can do it by themselves. If they have to outsource to an agency to build the product, if they have to outsource to any other dependency at that early stage, it's much harder to get off the ground. You want founders to eat, sleep, breathe their business and be able to ship on the weekends, late at night.
Depends on what is the product, right? If you're talking about e-commerce, for example, e-commerce, you can outsource to any number of outsourcing agencies for the core platform, and then it depends on really what is it that you're selling, what is the product, especially if it's a unique product and it's a merchandising-based venture, and the founder's core competency is merchandising, which was the case with the founder of Nasty Gal. They ended up mucking up that whole story, but she was doing very well on her own.
Yep.
So let's talk about what you are seeing in your deal flow right now. And I'm trying to get to what are the trends in the market right now. and from your vantage point, I'm sure you see thousands of deals per year. What strikes you? What's popping out as trends?
Sure. So yeah, we see about 500 to 600 deals a month that come into the partnership. We end up, by the way, investing in about one per month is our pace. So the funnel gets narrow pretty quickly. These days, I'd say about a quarter of our portfolio is something we call hard tech. So, we've done we have a software for autonomous private aircraft. Autopilot hasn't been upgraded in decades, and so this is, the next version of that for eventually autonomous transport in the air. We have an AV company as well for cars that helps predict objects in front of the cars so that they can avoid them and they can be able to move around in a safe matrix. We have also autonomous software that powers autonomous cargo ships. So we say we have like a land, sea, and air autonomous strategy, both software and hardware, and that's kind of hard tech. We're seeing a lot more of those robotics companies, and so that's one area. Also leveraging a similar theme in general automation. We're seeing a lot of software SaaS that's working on automating the enterprise. We have one company that's not announced yet. It's in a category that's probably one of the hottest in enterprise SaaS, the RPA space, robotic process automation. And RPA essentially enables any enterprise, Fortune 1000, for example, to automate, a bulk of their manual labor. So data entry, pulling data from disparate systems. Traditionally, these jobs were outsourced through BPO to India or what have you. Now you have software that uses computer vision that literally watches what employees are doing and then automates those processes. Actually, the fastest growing enterprise company in the world is in this category, a company called UiPath. That just announced a raise from Sequoia, $3 billion, but in 2 years, they're already at a multi-$100 million run rate. And so that's in that category, robotic process automation. And I think the two things I just spoke about, kind of robots in hardware and in software, again, play into that general trend of automation. We're also seeing a lot in fintech and insurance. I think there's a lot of disruption happening with traditional B2C banks and the way that millennials, spend money, save money. And so they need new interfaces and new user experiences than just the traditional banks. Also, all the infrastructure behind banking and insurance companies are being disrupted because they're incredibly inefficient. And so we're seeing a lot of B2B companies, also playing in the fintech space. We say we like unsexy industries. I'm looking right now at a construction company that's doing storing construction history on the blockchain. And I know there's a lot of buzzwords, and when people say, "Oh yeah, we're using blockchain," more than not, you can say you probably don't need to use blockchain for this. But there are some really interesting native use cases of blockchain that we're excited to learn about and invest in. And so, those are just kind of very top of mind. This is deal flow from this week that we're excited
very
about.
Interesting. Very interesting. I'm actually it's something that has come up in some of the talks that I've given recently about this whole automation thing, right? India's development to a very large extent depended on this massive BPO industry, and I think that's going to go away in the next decade or two.
Yeah, I think in general, any human commoditized action is being replaced by machines, and I think for the next few decades, AI is augmented intelligence. So it's actually pairing with humans to make our jobs a lot easier before it potentially disrupts industries. And, people thought the Industrial Revolution would eliminate, categories of jobs. It, in fact, created brand new jobs and ended up increasing the total number of jobs. And so I think there's an argument around AI and automation. Are we looking at mass disruption? Are we looking at augmentation? I think it's going to be augmentation before disruption, but it's almost, it's a theme you can apply to anything. When you walk down the street.
Yes, that's a much longer discussion, but I'll just kind of say my assessment is that this is going to be a massive disruption in the long run, and it's going to be a species-level disruption. So, folks, those of you who are interested in this topic, you can go to the blog, the 1M1M blog, and read Man and Superman, and we're having lots of discussions on this topic on that series. Feel free to discuss. Feel free to, if you have guest posts that you want to contribute on this topic, you're very welcome to do that. Nihal, I have one last question for you before you run off, is about unicorns. Are you chasing unicorns? What is your assessment of the dynamics of the investment climate right now? Because, as you said, you like unsexy industries, and the truth is there are lots of opportunities to build great businesses in some of these unsexy industries by being capital efficient, and you can still build good sizable businesses with less money and sell them for smaller exits, but that's a different type of venture investing.
Yeah, I think, for us, we invest in about 40 companies in every fund, and every investment needs to have the potential to reach $1 billion market cap. So it needs to reach a unicorn threshold to have the potential to reach that to be able to return the fund. So, every investment that we make, we like to think that it has potential to become a unicorn. Now, that being said, of 40 companies, probably only 3 to 5 will get there, and the vast majority, 35, will not. But that's how these funds typically are constructed.
Well, it's a traditional venture capital model. No.
Exactly. I say also when entrepreneurs shoot for the stars, they often land on the moon. And so you want to make the trajectory, you want to invest in companies that have this massively ambitious trajectory, because, obviously things change, things twist and turn, things pivot. But if they're that ambitious and if they have that much acceleration coming off the start, then, they're probably going to end up in a decent place, even if they fail. So,
not necessarily. There's a difference between ambition and recklessness, and we have a series on the blog, Dead by Overfunding, and that is also a phenomenon.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true, and we've had our share of those as well. But yeah, we're definitely unicorn hunting with every investment. To your question.
Fantastic. Well, great conversation, Nihal. Thank you for coming, and we'll catch up later.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.